Chapter 13, Mishnah 9. When two co-wives fall for Yibum, once one of them has had Yibum, the other one becomes forbidden for marriage to all of the surviving brothers. If one of the brothers violates this prohibition and cohabits with the other co-wife, she does not become his wife, since there is no longer a Yibum bond. Nor does this act disqualify the first co-wife from staying married to the Yavam who performed Yibum with her. While this is the rule with Yibum on the biblical level, it is not always true with cases that involve the rabbinic Yibum obligation. This is because there are cases where, under rabbinic law, an act of Yibum with one co-wife does not completely fulfill the rabbinic Yibum obligation of the other wives. In these cases, cohabitation with a second co-wife can sometimes also be considered an act of Yibum, as our Mishnah will teach. Here again, the Mishnah will make a distinction between co-wives with the same type of rabbinic marriage and those with different types of rabbinic marriages. We now turn to the words of the Mishnah. A man who was married to two underage orphan girls and he died without children, so that these two girls now fall to his brothers for Yibum, if the Yavam cohabited with one of these girls, thereby discharging the Yibum obligation for both girls, and he then cohabited with the second one, or his brother then cohabited with the second one, or he did not disqualify the first one from remaining married to the Yavam, this is because once Yibum was performed with the first girl, there was no longer any Yibum obligation left to fulfill. The cohabitation with the second girl was therefore not considered an act of Yibum, and does nothing to prohibit the first girl's marriage to the Yavam. The same applies to two deaf mutes who were co-wives. The Yibum of one completely fulfills the Yibum obligation for both of them, and the cohabitation with the second one does not affect the marriage of the first. The Mishnah now deals with the law for co-wives who had different types of rabbinic marriages. If one of the wives was an underage orphan girl and the other was a deaf mute, both of whom are considered married only rabbinically, the law is as follows. If the Yavam cohabited first with the underage orphan, and he then cohabited with the deaf mute, or he cohabited with the underage orphan and his brother then cohabited with the deaf mute, he did not disqualify the underage orphan girl from remaining married to the Yavam. However, if the Yavam first cohabited with the deaf mute and then cohabited with the underage orphan girl, or his brother then cohabited with the underage orphan girl, he disqualified the deaf mute from being able to stay married to the Yavam. This is because the rabbinic marriage of the deaf mute is considered in some ways less of a marriage than the rabbinic marriage of an underage girl. As a result, the Yibum of the deaf mute does not completely discharge the stronger Yibum bond of the underage girl. This means that even after the Yibum of the deaf mute, part of the underage girl's bond remains in effect. Because of this, when the Yavam or one of his brothers later cohabits with the orphan girl, that act is also considered an act of Yibum. This results in both co-wives having been married in Yibum, which forbids each one. The Yavam must therefore divorce the deaf mute.